Hey, it's Ollie. Before I start, I want to talk to you about coffee. I know I very rarely go out and grab a coffee. Normally, just make it in the office. But I thought, "Do you know what? I'll treat myself. Head out into the village and go to Costa." I went in and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, so much choice." So I just said, "Oh, can I grab a coffee?" And he said, "Oh, what coffee would you like? Would you like a flat white?" I was like, "No." Cappuccino, no. Latte, no. Cortado. I don't even know what that is. But I was just like, yeah, I'll go for one of them. Or I think I went for a flat white in the end. But he was like, do you want oat milk or almond or skimmed semi? And in all honesty, I just wanted a coffee. But it made me reflect a little bit around the blur for founders with external support. And I thought I'd share a bit more about that. So it's no different to most founders, right? You don't wake up and go, today I need a strategic, fractional, commercial growth transformation partner. I don't think anybody's ever said that. You think, I need a bit of help. And then you open up LinkedIn and you get an advisor, a business advisor, commercial advisor, strategic advisor, growth advisor, business coach, growth coach, profit coach, consultant, NED. You add mentor, you add founder community on there, your peer group, masterminds, fractional this, fractional that. And honestly, by the time you're reading everyone's profile, you just need to lie down. And this is what I call the blur. Everyone sounds similar and everyone promises to do similar outcomes. But actually, underneath, they're completely different types of roles and different types of support. And I'm going to talk you through that. And here's the funny thing, if half the people with those titles, they give a completely different definition based on what they actually do. And before anyone starts sharpening up their keyboards to comment, this isn't saying that coaches are rubbish or advisors are better or consultants are more specialists. Or it's actually quite the opposite. There is a place for all of these types of people in the world today. The problem isn't the people, the problem is the labels. Now, that's the blur. What are you actually going to support someone with? And it creates an uncertainty for founders. So, somewhere over the last 10, 15 years, everything has become growth. Everyone helps businesses grow. Brilliant. How? Everyone improves performance. Excellent. Doing what? Everything unlocks potential, which is fantastic. But what does that actually mean? We've been really good at explaining the outcome, but we've not been really good at explaining what that involves. And it's a bit like advertising yourself as a health professional. Great, but are you a dentist, a physio, a surgeon? Because there's going to be many different reasons why I'm going to come to you. Or are you someone that's going to tell me just to drink more water? They're all health professionals, but I'd actually quite like to know which one you are before I actually book an appointment, or what do you actually solve? And LinkedIn doesn't help either. And honestly, this is one of my favorite games. Scroll through your feed and see how long it takes before you find a job title you've never seen before: strategic growth architect, commercial transformation partner, revenue performance catalyst, fractional scaling specialist. One bloke the other day had a headline so long, I think it needed planning permission. And before anyone says, easy for you to laugh, I'm including advisors in this, and I'm one of them. Some of the titles are getting ridiculous, and it's like we're all in competition to see who can sound more important. And look, you're most probably thinking, who actually cares? And it's a fair question, because surely if someone gets results, does it really matter what the title is? And I'd argue yes, not because one is better than another, but because it's built to solve different problems. Imagine you've got toothache, you don't ring the plumber. He's probably brilliant, but he's just not that good with teeth. If your boiler pack's in, you don't ring the dentist. And again, lovely person, but a wrong problem. And it sounds obvious when you say it like that, but founders do this all the time because when they're struggling, everyone's looking for the same thing. Everyone starts to feel the same. That is the blur. So someone says you need a coach, so you hire a coach. Someone else says you need an NED, so they appoint an NED. Another founder joins 3 mastermind groups because everyone on LinkedIn tells them to join mastermind groups. But nobody stops to ask, what problem am I actually trying to solve? They start with the solution, not the question. And that's where expensive mistakes happen. Because what I've realized is founders rarely engage the wrong person. They actually engage the right person, but just for the wrong problem. And that is completely different. Now, I'm not saying that advisors are better than coaches, or a coach is better than an NED, or the founder network is better than a mentor. They're just different tools. It's like arguing whether a hammer is better than a screwdriver. It just completely depends what you're trying to do. So, look, jokes aside, that is what I'm going to go through in this video. Not to tell you which one is best, because there isn't one. I just want to unblur the labels, because forget about marketing or LinkedIn headlines. And I want to answer one simple question. What problem does each one, what are they designed to solve? Because once you understand that, choosing the right help becomes much easier. So let's start clearing the blur one role at a time. So first up, advisors, because I think this is probably the title that becomes the most confusing, because you get a commercial advisor, a growth advisor, strategic, business, executive, AI. I've most probably missed a few, but by the end of next week, we'll most probably have 5 or 6 more. So what actually is an advisor? At its simplest, an advisor helps you make better decisions. That's it. They're not there to run the business. They're not there to become the boss. They're not there to tell you what to do every 5 minutes. Their job is to bring another perspective, experience, challenge. Sometimes they'll confirm your thinking in the right direction, and sometimes they'll just completely disagree with you, which is, by the way, a positive. It's usually where the value is, because if everyone always agrees with you, you're probably not being challenged enough. So think about it like an elite sport. Every top athlete has coaches, but they also have people watching from the sidelines, because it's almost impossible to see your own blind spots in the middle of a game. And business is no different. When you're running your own company every day, you're dealing with clients, people, cash flow, hiring, sales, operations, and sometimes you're just a bit too close to it. What an advisor does is it provides you another pair of eyes. Sometimes they confirm what you're already suspecting, or actually they'll point something out you've completely missed. And occasionally that tells you something you don't particularly want to hear, and that's normally the useful bit. Now, compare that with an NED, a non exec director. People often put advisors and NEDs in the same bucket, and they are similar, but they're definitely not the same. A good way to think about it is an advisor usually is helping you make decisions, and an NED is making sure the business makes good decisions. Sound familiar? It's a very different job. An NED sits around the board table. They're there to challenge, to question, to pressure test. They're the person saying, what's the evidence? What are we missing? Have we thought about the downside? They're not going to be jumping into the CRM. They're probably not rewriting your sales processes. They're not managing your team. They're trying to make sure the leadership team isn't driving the business into a hedge, because everyone's got carried away with the latest bright idea. Every founder needs a challenge. The difference is an NED provides that challenge through governance, and an advisor usually provides it through experience. Similar destination, different route, similar title, but completely different job. And that's exactly why the blur exists. So now let's talk about business coaches. And I think this is one of the most misunderstood jobs in the list, because loads of founders expect a coach to have all the answers, when in reality, a really good coach is the one asking all the questions, not answering them. And you'll have come out of coaching sessions going, I'm not really sure if they told me anything. Exactly, because the session was helping you think better, not borrowing their thinking. A coach is trying to improve how you lead, how you communicate, how you think, how you make decisions. How do you hold yourself accountable? If you've ever had a great coach, you'll know the feeling. You walk into the session convinced you've got 100 problems, and an hour later, you've answered most of them yourself. That's the skill, not telling you what to do, just helping you see what you couldn't see before. So here's where founders sometimes get caught out. let's say revenues become unpredictable, your forecasts are off, clients are disappearing, margins are shrinking. You hire a business coach, and the coach asks you brilliant questions. It gets you thinking, it changes your mindset, and it helps you become a stronger leader. All really valuable, but what if the problem wasn't your leadership? What if it was pricing or a client mix or the pipeline or the commercial process? That isn't a coaching problem, that's a business problem. And the coach hasn't failed, they're just solving the wrong problem. It's like taking your car for an MOT because the sat nav isn't working. It's the wrong specialist. So that's the theme you'll notice throughout the whole of this video. Every one of these people create value, but they create value in different ways. And the trouble is, from the outside, they're all remarkably similar, helping ambitious businesses grow. Brilliant. That narrows it down to absolutely everyone. So we've covered advisors, we've covered NEDs, we've covered business coaches. Now let's make it even more confusing, because next up we've got growth coaches, profit coaches, consultants, founder communities, and mentors. And yes, some of those sound like they do exactly the same thing too. So let's start with growth coaches. And I always smile at this title, and it's not because there's anything wrong with it, but it's like, who doesn't want growth? It's a bit like saying I'm a breathing coach. Well, yes, I'd like to continue doing that, please. But growth is something every business wants, but it's how are you helping create it? So generally speaking, a growth coach is focused on increasing revenue, more clients, better marketing, more leads, better sales, pricing, conversion, and scaling. These are the commercial levers that create growth. And if your business has solid foundations and your challenge is how do we grow faster, brilliant. That's exactly the sort of help that you're looking for. But here's where founders get caught out, because sometimes growth actually isn't the problem. The business is already growing, it's just growing badly. More clients, same chaos, more revenue, same stress, more sales, cash flow headaches. Growth doesn't magically fix a business, and quite often it just magnifies what's already there. Think about turning the volume up on your radio. It's a great song, fantastic. If it's static, you've just made the static louder. So growth can do exactly the same thing for your business. So profit coaches, they're slightly different, and they're not so obsessed with turnover. They're obsessed with what happens after turnover. So margins, pricing, costs, efficiency, profit. So because we've all seen those businesses, turnover's doubled, everyone's celebrating, and then you ask, so how much more profit do you make? Silence. So revenue gets the headlines, profit pays the wages. And then we've got consultants, and a consultant is typically brought in because of their specialism, be it technology, operations, sales, marketing, finance, HR, whatever it might be. They're usually there to solve a defined problem. Often they'll analyze it, recommend a solution, and even sometimes help implement it. Then they move on. It's project based, not usually an ongoing relationship. Now, let's talk about founder communities. These have absolutely exploded in the last few years, and I can understand why. Running a business can be lonely. I know myself. It's really lonely at times. And sometimes you just want to speak to somebody who gets it, somebody who understands what you've been staying awake until 3 in the morning thinking about, or why one difficult client can ruin your weekend. Founder groups are brilliant for that. You suddenly realize it's not just me. And honestly, that alone can be worth the membership alone. But here's the important bit: a founder group isn't there to diagnose your business, it's there to give you perspective, ideas, support, connections. You'll hear, oh, here's what worked for us, but brilliant. But what will work for you? Maybe, maybe not. Different market, different people, different customers, different timing. You'll probably leave with 20 brilliant ideas, and then you'll spend the drive home wondering, which one do I actually focus on first? Now, that's the challenge. You've got perspective, not necessarily clarity. And that's where another layer of blur appears. And then there's a mentor, and we've all got one, or at least we all know one: the old boss, the previous MD, the founder who's 10 years ahead of you. You buy them lunch, tell them what's going on, and you ask, what would you do? And there's huge value in that, huge. But there's also something worth remembering. They're answering your question based on their experience, not your diagnosis. Again, great help, different type of help, and the blur strikes again. So imagine ringing your mate and you've spent 10 minutes explaining the problem, and before you're even finished, they've got an answer. Now, that might be brilliant, or it might be the answer that worked in their business 5 years ago with different clients, different people, market conditions. They're really trying to help, and of course they are, but they're pattern matching. They're remembering, but they're not investigating. And that's the thread running through all of the roles or type of individuals that you can engage, from coach, advisor, consultant, NED. None of them are better, but they all do a different job. They're brilliant at what they do. It's like opening a toolbox and saying that a spanner is better than a screwdriver. It completely depends on what you're trying to fix. The expensive mistake isn't choosing the wrong person, it's trying to tighten a bolt with a paintbrush. You're using the wrong tool for the job. So here's what hardly anyone says: before deciding what to do, let's make sure you're solving the right problem. Imagine going to the doctor, you sit down, and before you've said anything, they hand you a box of antibiotics. You'd think, hang on, don't you actually want to check what's wrong with me first? Exactly. Yet, let's think about a lot of business support that gets sold. It's solutions first, questions later. That's exactly what the blur creates: solutions before understanding. So here's the one question I'd ask you before you engage anybody. Not how much do you charge, not who have you worked with, not even what results have you had. I'd ask, how do you work out what the problem actually is? Because that's where everything starts. If someone just jumps straight into, here's our framework or here's our program, before they truly understand your business, I'd be asking a few more questions. And that's really the whole point of this video. It's not about saying that advisors are better than coaches, or coaches better than consultants, or even your NED is better than a founder group, because that's just not true. They're just different tools. The only question that matters is, what are you trying to solve? So hopefully the next time you're looking for external help, the blur won't seem quite so blurry. You'll know what each role is actually there to do, and more importantly, you'll know the questions to ask before you decide who to engage, because that's the bit that really matters. Thanks for watching. See you next time.